Hello everyone, this is Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular ladder battle, I will be piloting the Greenskins led by an Orc War boss over here on his Wyvern, and I will be facing off against an Empire opponent. So definitely a fun classical lore matchup, and gives me the opportunity to use some Goblins, so that's always fun. So as far as my army composition goes, I have a front line of Doomdiver catapults. Again, as I've explained in past videos, a big fan of the accuracy of these guys, and I feel like they provide really good long-term sustained value, especially if you can protect them over the course of the battle. In my secondary line, I have Goblins. Definitely some of the best greenskin fodder units against the Empire. They are shielded and come in extremely high density. So again, I think that is a very, very valuable tool, and something that certainly shouldn't be overlooked. And, although the tooltip does say they have poor leadership, if they're near like a war boss or other units that have encouraging capabilities, then, at the end of the day, they usually last pretty long. So definitely a fan there. In the backline here, I have two groups of black orcs. Again, these are the armored shock troops with armor piercing, so you definitely want to line these up against swordsmen or great swords, or really put them to work in that regard. In the back line, I have an Arachnarok Spider. I've become a huge fan of this. Not only does it have slight ranged capabilities, its missile damage is not bad, and it also applies poison with its attacks as well. But it's just a strong melee combatant and can really, really just run people over. So I've become a big fan of the Arachnarok Spider lately. In terms of leadership, I have a Goblin Big Boss. I actually was experimenting with this guy a little bit, and he's been working out pretty well for me, simply because he can carry 2 potions. So, he doesn't have as high combat stats as a lot of other secondary lords, but overall he's a pretty good combatant, and again, I would definitely recommend him. He can plug in wherever he's needed, and he can even hold up groups of elite infantry for quite some time if you have the 2 potions on him. Then I have an Orc Shaman. Decided I was pinching pennies, so I decided not to mount him, because again, he kind of just needs to be near his troops to give the buffs, so no problem there. And of course, an Orc War Boss. I also have a lot of Vanguard action going on this game. I have 2 groups of Night Goblin archers over here in the brush, so I was hoping my opponent would engage here and leave the flank of a troop exposed, and I could tee off on them with the Goblin Night Archers, or the Night Goblin Archers. But unfortunately, he brought a ton of cavalry, which made the Vanguard deployment of those Goblins much less effective. I also have a group of Night Goblins here. So these are the melee Night Goblins. I was just mainly experimenting with them this game, and it didn't pan out too bad. I actually enjoyed them, so you guys will get a little taste of that here in a minute. And then on the far end, I have a group of Goblin Wolf Riders, who are Vanguard deployed over there. In terms of my opponent's army composition, he has a very mobile, dynamic army. He has a group of Demogryph Knights with halberds, so they do have anti-large, which will be quite good against my monstrous spider unit and any other cavalry units. Well, I suppose I just have the Goblin Wolf Riders, but if they do get their paws on my war boss, they'll do quite well. And he has a group of Reiksguard, again, very heavily armored at 120. And not quite as heavily armored as the Demogryph Knights at 125, but not far behind. So they're a very, very sturdy unit. He has a front line of spearmen, swordsmen, more swordsmen, so a miscellaneous front line of spearmen and swordsmen. So this is his fodder line, somewhat equivocal to my goblins, slightly higher unit quality there. In the back line, he has greatswords, additional greatswords, some other spearmen, and just kind of a mishmash of random infantry. And as far as his leadership goes, he actually has Karl Franz, and it looks like he has a lot of the upgrades. I haven't seen a Karl Franz in a long time, ever since this new potion meta, so it should be interesting to see old Karl in action on his Deathclaw, and we'll see how it pans out. And that's pretty much it for his army. I believe over here he had 2 additional groups of Reiksguard, and then he also has Outriders with grenade launchers. So usually I'm not a fan of those guys, but they actually do pretty okay this game. Definitely better than I've seen in the past. So without further ado, let's get started. So right now, my Doomdiver catapults are beginning to shoot. There is a slight obstruction here with this tree line, and I was trying to shoot in here, and they were getting caught in the trees. And definitely not a fun fate for those goblins, so I immediately switched them over to the greatswords, because right here he has a big cluster of troops. He has some greatswords here and another group of greatswords there and some spearmen behind. So this is the juicy target right here. So you can see that the Doomdivers are going to start shooting in there. They're going to start doing some real work, and you can see those spearmen took huge damage. Those ones in the back line took damage, and now these greatswords are starting to take damage. So anytime you can identify a clustered group with your Doomdiver catapults, it's definitely going to pay dues. So I see his army is rapidly approaching, so I move my front line to meet him and kind of be ready to engage his front line. At the same time, I start moving my Goblin Wolf Riders out, and I also start pulling up my Night Goblin soldiers over there. And you know, I didn't see an opportunity for these guys to be effective from this tree line, so I decided to move them back here so they could, you know, shoot at these harassing grenadiers over here, so, or outriders with grenade launchers to be more proper with the terminology. And the Arachnarok Spider, it's goblins who are mounted up there are taking some nice little shots, so things are going pretty well for me so far. And as you guys can see, those Doomdiver catapults are paying huge dividends. They're doing quite a bit of damage to those greatswords, and that's huge for me because those greatswords are really valuable units in terms of his infantry. The rest of his infantry are really low quality, and he's going to need those greatswords to crack my Black Orcs. So our front line engages across the front, and I noticed that he has a pretty strong presence over here on my western flank. So I pulled my auxiliary Black Orcs to deal with these swordsmen, and I also buff them at the same time with the Fists of Gork, so they'll have defense, damage, and melee attack, and they will make short work of both of these units, no problem. And then I also pulled my other group of Black Orcs because I wanted them to defend these archers because I knew he was going to come in here with the cavalry. Unfortunately, I was a little late with that, and he was able to get optimal positioning on me. So I do engage with my Orc War Boss. He goes ahead and dive bombs these guys and does a little bit of damage there, but unfortunately they do get a nice charge of my Night Goblins. But on a positive note, my Black Orcs are engaged with them and will make short work of these Reiksguard. So, you know, at the same time, I don't have enough to deal with all this pressure that he's putting on. But I do send the Goblin Big Boss over here, who's going to get in there on his little wolf, and you can see him getting down and dirty with that Demogryph Knight, doing pretty good, so definitely can't complain there. But unfortunately, most of his troops do leak through and are able to get to my Doomdiver catapults, but there's only so much that you can do. As far as the front line goes, if you guys take a side view here, my Goblins are starting to crumble, but a lot of his swordsmen and great swords are in really bad shape from the Doomdivers. So thankfully, you know, the Goblins, they did their piece, but, you know, now they're taking off. They deserve a rest. They certainly did very well. But thankfully, I was able to secure my back line. These Black Orcs, as well as the Orc War Boss, were able to drive off those Reiksguard, so they retreated. And now Karl Franz actually landed, but he got crushed. Karl Franz got poisoned, and this Orc War Boss, I used the Wa, so all these Orcs got huge attack bonuses, and these Night Goblins were also focusing him. So Karl had to retreat, and he pulls in those Reiksguard to cover the retreat of Karl Franz, which was definitely a good play on his part. And you know, he did bring a ton of cavalry, so he was kind of able to run rampant through my my back lines. But, you know, I did have the Black Orcs in the mix, and they were getting a lot of kills on these Reiksguard. So my front line, it's looking pretty grim right now. You know, it crumbled for the most part, but I still have this Arachnarok Spider in perfect health. I have a very healthy group of Black Orcs here, and these guys are very healthy as well. And if you look at his infantry line, it is very tattered. And his greatswords, who is what he needs to get through Black Orcs, are in really bad shape. And my Arachnarok Spider is chilling. He's having a good time, taking out some spearmen, which isn't ideal, but again, it's not bad. So over here in the back, actually, those Night Goblin fanatics, he had a group of Reiksguard relaxing back here, and the Night Goblins were able to intercept them. Not the best matchup for the Night Goblins, but regardless, they're tying up these Reiksguard and, you know, poisoning them and keeping them from getting back to the main battle where they could have made a huge difference. And thankfully for me, my Goblins, and this is very, very normal. If you're playing as Greenskins and you're using a Goblin composition, you need to be scanning their periphery every 10-15 seconds because they come back from route very quickly. And, you know, again, they're going to do a great job re-engaging here, and they'll give me a nice focal center point. And you see, same with these Night Goblin archers. I bring them back, and they're able to start shooting again, so I was very happy about that. Right here, this, I believe it's a Goblin Big Boss, and this is what I was telling you guys. He's handling a group of Reiksguard and Greatswords all by himself, and he has potions, and he's not going anywhere. He's doing a great job. And in the meantime, my Black Orcs were able to clean up over here and do really good, and now they're going to come over here and lay the beat down on these Greatswords. So again, it was going pretty well for me. Unfortunately, he does have these grenade launchers shooting into my lines, but they're really, really not that good in my opinion. Even though he's getting some direct hits, it's not doing much. And this Arachnarok Spider is able to jump on them now, and he's chasing them off, and now they're already shaken. So, and you know what little spears and fodder infantry he has left, I don't know if he has enough to deal with this Arachnarok Spider, to be honest, especially considering what I have left here. So the Arachnarok Spider is engaged by the Demogryph Knights with halberds, which is what my opponent wants. But regardless, they're quite low on HP, and the Goblin Big Boss is here supporting, and they should be able to clean this group up pretty well. On that same note, Karl Franz does get caught, and the Orc War Boss gets a nice flank on him. And unfortunately for Karl, the Spider is coming, and that is going to spell his doom. And down goes Deathclaw and Karl, and this Orc War Boss is in perfect shape. And that's just, I'm telling you guys, it's just a testament to how good potions are. It doesn't really matter that Karl has, slightly better combat stats and other abilities. The potions are just too valuable to waste, because losing your leadership, you can see most of his units, if you look at it across the board, his leadership's low everywhere. And again, I have this Arachnarok Spider. I still have my Orc War Boss in full health. My Orc Shaman's running around somewhere. He's over here. He's doing pretty well. But right now, it's kind of just reduced to a Zerg. I'm just running around with the death ball and trying to crush his pockets of resistance. He's trying to reform his ranks in a few different areas, so I just really wanted to make sure to crush what I could before he could reform. So they're doing pretty well right here, and they're doing some serious damage. And again, I'm shooting my missile attacks at those Demogryph Knights, trying to chase them off the battlefield, but just a swing and a miss there. So over here, I did have those Night Goblins. They're still fighting. They were doing a great job, and they do come in large numbers, so they tend to last a while, even if they do break. So I bring in the War Boss to support them, and he's able to chase these Reiksguard down, and now you can see that their leadership is 16, 18, you know, it was at 5 at one point, so they're really, really having some serious problems. So what I was very happy about now is I had a pretty strong centralized force. I had some Black Orcs, I had some Goblins, because it's good to have that mixture of that, because right now you can see the Goblins are running ahead, and as far as their run speed goes, they have 33 speed to these Black Orcs 29. So the Goblins will run ahead, take the initial charge bonus of whatever swordsman or units he has here, then those Black Orcs will follow up and clean up shop, especially with the support of their Ragnarok Spider and their Orc War Boss. That's something it's very important to keep your Orc leadership alive, and it's very important for the Greenskin faction because that ability, the Wa, that gives all your guys 58 melee attack is so powerful. It can just make a huge difference and can turn Goblins into savage combatants. So again, things were going pretty well for me here. He was trying to reform his ranks, but you know, to be honest, most of his troops were just too injured, and I still had that full health Ragnarok Spider, and you know, he has a few scattered units back here, but their morale is so low. And look at these Night Goblin archers over there still doing some work, but at that point, it was mostly over, and once Karl Franz had fallen, it was definitely going to be tough for my opponent to come back. As far as the army breakdown goes, the Orc War Boss did quite well, and the Goblin Big Boss did good. You guys saw him intercept several groups of powerful units and was able to hold them off and still lasted until the bitter end. These Goblins did really well, and they actually racked up quite a bit of kills. The one thing, I probably wouldn't have invested in Night Goblins. I think maybe I would have sacked those and, you know, gotten another group of melee for my front line, maybe some Biggins or, you know, something of that value. So, but regardless, my Black Orcs did really well. 123 kills. They fought to the end, and that's due largely in part to the fact that these Goblins absorbed all that shock in the beginning. They were entangling great swords, and you know, the Black Orcs are just such sturdy units. So the Night Goblin Archers, they didn't appear to do well, but I believe they did pretty good. They really whittled down Karl Franz, and they're such a cheap and expendable investment, it doesn't really matter. They were able to shoot at Demogryph Knights and a multitude of different units and apply that poison as well. Goblin Wolf Riders, they were kind of a miss this game. As you can see, he didn't have crossbowmen or any other, you know, units of that type, so there was no great targets for them. And I think I should have just kept them hidden for a long time instead of trying to pull them out for the initial fight and then use them to chase routing units, because he had so many cavalry that he was able to just outclass me in that regard. The Ragnarok Spider did very well, and of course the Doomdiver Catapults, though they got shut down, were able to really destroy those great swords before they got to my front line. So a really good game to deny A. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and thanks again for watching, guys. Also, I just got a new microphone. I'm using the Yeti, the Blue Yeti. So let me know what you guys think about the audio quality, if it was better than my old mic, which unfortunately actually just malfunctioned yesterday, so I had to go ahead and get a new one. Again, thanks guys, and you guys all have an excellent night. Take care.